Hello, friends. Welcome back to another week of Come Follow Me Study here on the Build Your Arc stream. How are we doing? Ian said hello. I'm glad that Ian's here. Who else is here? Say hi. Kale. Hello, Kale. How are you doing, my friend? It's been a couple weeks since I last talked with you. How are things with your family? I know that there was a lot of stress going on around your family. Hi, Holly. I'm glad you could make it to stream. Super grateful you're here. Hi, Libby. Wow, you made it. I'm glad you're here too. My goodness, we got some powerhouse people. Some powerhouse people on today. Love it. Absolutely love it. Perfect. How did I wasn't able to watch last week. Dax is here too, watching from Holly's phone or Holly's computer, I assume. Very great. How did things go last week for Ian's stream? How did you guys like Ian's stream? I haven't had a chance to go back and rewatch it, to be honest. Work has kept me very busy between work and doing some wedding preparation because we're about 7 weeks away from getting married. So it's a little bit hectic. Libby says 10 out of 10. He did a great job. Absolutely. I'm planning to take some time tomorrow to watch it, to kind of catch up, because I definitely don't want to miss out on those. Maybe we should ask Ian how Ian felt he did. Okay. We are going to start early. And the reason why we're going to start early is because we're going to switch it up a little bit today and watch something a little different other than a conference talk. As great as conference talks are, and we are coming up on conference in, I believe it's 2 weekends from this Saturday. So we're about 2.5 weeks out. Let me double check. Yeah, so 2 weekends from this Saturday is General Conference on April 4th, which is great, and we will definitely be watching those conference talks as well. However, I did want to take a little bit of a blast from the past moment, kind of backpedal a little bit to when I first started this stream 3 years ago. When I first started this stream 3 years ago, I made it a point to watch some of the other videos that are on the church's website and church's resources that aren't really viewed all that often because nobody really knows that they're there. But they have some incredible messages. And I found them on my mission. So this particular video we're going to watch comes from the Hope Works series that the church has done over the course of the last 10 years or so. They don't really update this series anymore, but it's an incredible series where they invite people to kind of give give talks or speeches on a topic, and that particularly pertain to their lives, in kind of a TED Talk format. This video is a little bit long, but I think it has some great principles of the gospel and some great insights on who we are and how we can go about this life. So we're going to go ahead and give this video a watch. It is 20 minutes, which is why we're going to get rolling a little early. And then we'll jump right into the Come Follow Me study. Sorry, I had like a sneeze brewing. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys after. Excuse me. Freak. I should have maybe loaded this before stream. I didn't expect my internet to have problems. Hold on. We're going to jump back over here real fast. Let's see. I'll give it a good old refresh. Let's see here. All right, let's try that. It really doesn't like me today. Okay, hold on a second. We're going to try something real quick. And hope that this works instead. I apologize for my technical difficulties. Bear with me for just a minute. Sorry. Wait. I got this. I promise. Okay, if I do this, hold on, let's see. Okay, guess not. Hold on. Oh, maybe if I do that instead. We're close. We're almost there. Pause. Hold on. Okay, I think I've got it. Okay.
Houston, we have a problem. Sound familiar? That's the now famous phrase from the Apollo 13 crew, right? On their moon journey. And the interesting thing was, they were pretty much trying to send a signal back home that they were in some serious trouble. And I wanted to get in that same spirit tonight and give you a warning. Humans, we have a problem here on this earth. And that problem is very simply, our human lives are destroying our spiritual lives. Our human existence has the tendency to crush and to dwarf our spiritual existence. And we have got to figure out how to take our lives back and put our lives in the right order. And I know this personally because one time when I was an 11-year-old scout, I went to scout camp, my first scout camp ever, the biggest moment of my life. It was me turning into a man. It was going to be the greatest event of my life, and I knew it. I knew it. And I went out. I was so excited. See, I was raised by my mom and my 3 sisters, 4 women that I affectionately called my pack of women. They were wonderful. But one thing we didn't do is we didn't do a lot of camping. So when the 11-year-old scout went out to go camping, this was the rite of passage. I knew manhood was soon. I got out there. This was the greatest moment. I got to go, eat in the woods. I got to sleep in a tent. They even gave us what are called meals ready to eat, MREs, the military meals, right? And this was back in the day. Now they're not, now they're sealed in nice little bags, but back then they were in cans. Because you had to open the can, and you had to open the can with a special can opener. And if you didn't know what you were doing, you could lose a finger, seriously. And so we went out to scout camp. It was the greatest thing in the world. As I'm getting my great little meal ready to eat, I opened it up, and the first thing I noticed is that there were crackers in it. It took me about 20 minutes to get it open, by the way, and a couple of cuts on my fingers. But when I finally got it open, I ate my crackers. I was kind of a little worried about trying to open any more cans, but there was another can. They're like little tuna fish cans, and this tuna fish can said the word preserves on it. I had no idea what a preserve was. I was an 11-year-old kid, for crying out loud. And as I'm sitting there, I didn't know what a preserve was. I found out later it's jam, right? So I'm sitting there, we're listening to the scoutmaster. We're all sitting around this incredible fire. I'd never seen a fire so big. We'd even done some snipe hunting. A super cool thing. By the way, never caught one the entire night, but boy, did we try. And as we were doing all of this fun stuff, I'm sitting there with this sealed can of jam. I already had my crackers. Didn't know what to do with it. Our leader was telling us about Sasquatch and how he lived in the mountains. And if we hear any noises at night, be careful, because he could come out at any time. And I'm sitting there listening, and I just tossed the can of preserves in the fire. Had no need for it. And we sat there, and the leader kept telling more stories, and we got more scared, and we all leaned in, and we were all so excited. And all of a sudden, right at the moment of most fear, bam! The can exploded. And this 11-year-old scout had no idea what had happened, but everyone was burning, and they had red stuff all over their faces. And all of the scouts were screaming, my eyes, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And I'm sitting there thinking, what's going on here? And somebody's like, hey, it's jam, Who put the can of jam in the fire? And I'm like, who did that? That makes me sick. Who's gonna blow everyone up? In my head, I'm like, oh my word, I just killed my entire troop. My entire troop. I went from the stud, the 11-year-old coolest guy in the world, to a jam bomber. And I eventually became known as the jam bomber. Do you know what that does to a human? My identity, I'm a son of God. I'm not a jam bomber. I didn't even know this could happen. It ruined me. I was so worried. It took weeks for people to even talk to me again. You're the kid that burned us? Yeah, sorry. I'm just 11. I'm not even a real scout yet, but I might be soon. I thought that was the worst experience of my life. I really did. I thought, what could be worse than being an 11-year-old known as a jam bomber, for crying out loud? And guess what? Something was worse. Because about a year and a half, 2 years later, I was in 8th grade, ready to almost graduate and go to high school. And I went to a private school because my mom said I was that special. And I'm gonna go, and I was really there. I found out later to learn math. And but as the 8th grader of the school, I was a big deal. I even had keys to the stage. That's how big I was. I was on stage crew. And the funny thing about it, it was such a neat moment. They decided that they wanted to have a spelling bee. And the spelling bee was going to be from 8th grade down to 2nd grade. And I'm thinking, got it. I'm a word guy. I'm a word guy. Back of my head, you're a jam bomber. You're a jam bomber. Do you not remember that? So I had this weird thing going on, like, what am I really? I'm gonna ace it, I'll be fine. I get out there, spelling bee. My homeroom teacher was in charge of the spelling bee. It was such a great thing. I owned this moment. I got up there, 2nd round. I haven't even practiced these words. Nobody gets out in the 2nd round, right? So I get out there. My teacher, right there. She says, Matt, I'd like you to spell the word lion. I'm like, lion? Like lying around? I go, use it in a sentence. She said, the lion roared in the jungle. I said, oh, lion, L-O-I-N. Yeah, you laugh. And right then, I heard little 2nd graders gasp. Oh! And my teacher says, no, Matt, that's loin. Right then, 2nd grader called me loin boy. I went from jam bomber to loin boy like that. And luckily, the principal of the school wanted a teaching moment. So when she got up at the very end, she said, boys and girls, did we not learn a really important lesson tonight? We learned that we should think before we speak. Thank you, loin boy. What's the deal? So am I the loin boy or the jam bomber? I thought I was a human being? No. Am I a spiritual being? I hope. I need to somehow get out of this. We're sitting in a world where the world, if you're not careful, you will identify yourself as something of this world, and that is not who you are. I don't care who you are. If you're an 11-year-old boy or a 13-year-old boy, it doesn't matter in the end. We all have problems identifying ourselves as human beings instead of spiritual beings. I have clients that come and see me. One of the most impressive moments of my life was a 25-year-old man sitting at my desk, with his head on my desk, banging it gently and sobbing. This man has been battling cerebral palsy his entire life. And he was in the singles world and trying to date and trying to get a date. And he looked at me crying and he said, Matt, why can't I just be normal like everybody else in this world? And in my head, I'm like, loin boy, jam bomber. I had a 17-year-old girl come to my office. I was working with her, and she ended up, she'd been in a car accident. Her face was slightly paralyzed. She had some scars on her face. She had lost her equilibrium. She couldn't go do all the fun things she had been doing her entire life. And she looked at me and she said, now what am I going to be? I'm not an athlete. I don't think I'll ever get married. I don't look as pretty as I used to. I've had people that are depressed and anxious that I've worked with, people with ADHD. We have all of these things going on with us, and we forget who we are, and none of that is who we are. The best example of who we are, it was a great quote from a guy named Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest who said this quote, and it's so important. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. You are spiritual beings having a human experience, and your human experience has nothing to do with who you are. You lived with God, He knew who you were, He cares for you, He loves you, and He wants you to understand that. And as we are dealing with the human world, it beats us up. The Savior Himself, when He came down here, He understood who He was. Do you remember He was the boy that had to teach his parents whose work He was about? I'm about my Father's business, so sometimes I'll come home a little late. It's a crazy opportunity, I think, for all of us to figure out how are we going to balance the spirituality that we need to try to grow into and the natural human life that we're living. When the Savior came here, he was the God of gods, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, and yet when he got here, he had no place to lay his head. He was the creator of all worlds, and yet when he arrived, he was just the son of a carpenter. When he went to Gethsemane to perform one of the most important acts of all of humanity, he bade 3 of his apostles to stay with him and watch over him. And as he went in, I believe terrified, worried, hoping he could live up to this important task that he had to take on. His apostles, they loved him fully, and yet they slept. They slept through the atonement because they're human. And a lot of us have that battle. We don't know how to get our human to focus on the spiritual. So as we sit here, I want us all to be very clear. You are spiritual beings first and foremost. You always have been. You are sons and daughters of the Most High God. You have always been a spiritual being. Your natural state is spirituality. You knew the Lord, you knew the Father, you lived with them, you cared with them. You were theirs, and you weren't perfect yet. You didn't have a body yet. You had stuff to learn. You wanted the human experience. The human experience was something we all were excited about. As we came to this earth, as we were living in the Spirit, we felt peace. We felt loved. We felt connected, accepted. We felt confident with who we were. And because we were close to our Father, we knew exactly who we were. We felt full, even though we had stuff to learn. We also had one of my favorite words, at one-ment. We were at one with our Father in heaven, and that at one-ment fulfilled us. And that is a pretty powerful thing. Then we come down to this earth, and we have to battle some pretty crazy traps. Okay? The traps I talk about are 2 very human traps. I call it the trap of the body and the trap of the mind. The human body and the human mind, and every one of us is battling it every single day. Did you know that they say it takes about 2 trillion cells to create a human being? 2 trillion. So a little baby has 2 trillion perfect little cells, I guess, right? If I asked you to fold laundry 2 trillion times, what percentage of the folds do you think would be perfect? How many of you have noticed, because of the DNA handed down maybe by your parents, that it ain't so perfect? And you're wondering, like, what were you guys thinking? I wanted more hair, or I wanted less hair, and I wanted to be taller. And if I'm tall, I better bounce a basketball in our world. So we have all of these crazy things that happen to us because of these folding of the body. The body creates some of your biggest problems for you, doesn't it? It creates your body type. It creates your skin color. It creates genes. It creates a lot of your diseases, disorders, cancers, MS, Alzheimer's, all afflictions of the body. It can also create some other interesting things, addictive personalities and addictive behaviors. This body creates a lot of stuff for us. Some of us love it so much, we can't stop eating chocolate. The body is not who you are, because the body is nothing more than the shell to hold the spirit. We have all of these emotions that hit us. We feel flabby. We feel attractive. I feel hot. I feel hungry. I'm careful, pretty, fit, hurt. All of these feelings start to come in. And in a weird way, they start to dwarf the spiritual being that we all were. Because these chemistries, which is what the body runs on, tends to become more real to us than the spiritual promptings that we all know we've had. You are spiritual beings, and I know you are, and I know the body gets in the way, because if you've ever in your life held a newborn baby, you know what the spirit feels like. If you've ever held the hand of somebody that was dying, you know what the spirit feels like. If you've ever served somebody and while serving them felt an intense love for them, you know what the spirit feels like. You know. If you've ever just gone out to nature and been totally taken away in such a beautiful place, you know what the spirit feels like. The spirit is not just those feelings. That is your body that creates those feelings. The body is the first trap of the human life we live. The second trap is the mind. The mind, I want you to distinguish, is different than the body. When you sit there and you look in the mirror at your body and you think, I'm fat, that's probably not your body saying that. And I'm gonna bet it's not even your spirit saying that. I'm gonna bet it's something else. And I call it your mind. Your mind is part of that carnal experience we're having, and the mind was created, the carnal mind we know for sure was created with Adam and Eve in the garden. Do you remember they had bodies in the garden, they had spirits in the garden, and they were operating and working with each other. They were tending to the garden, picking fruit, taking care of everything. They weren't necessarily progressing like they probably should have. Eventually they partook of the fruit, and the minute they partook, the scriptures say their eyes were opened. And when they opened their eyes, what happened next? The first person they noticed was Lucifer. They noticed him because their eyes had been opened, and he's the father of this carnal experience. The mind is different than just chemistry and feelings. The mind starts to create judgments: poor, rich, powerful, weak, secure, famous, humiliated. All of these judgments that we all go through in our lives. The mind has a purpose, and its purpose is it wants glory, it wants power, it wants control. It wants all of these things. When Adam and Eve partook of the fruit and their eyes opened, Satan, Lucifer, pointed out what? You're naked. In my world, nakedness has another word or term we use in my kind of business. The word is vulnerable. For the first time, Adam and Eve felt vulnerable. They, for the first time, felt insecure. For the first time, if you remember, they started to cover up. They started running and hiding and fearing and shaming and guilting and blaming. They felt lonely. They felt dreary, and they were ejected from the garden. And when they were ejected from the garden with loneliness and fear and insecurity and all of these issues of the mind, plus the infirmities of the body, guess what happened to them? They felt this incredible need to try to fill these holes up. And I believe every one of us today, in our human body, in our human experience, we're doing nothing more than trying to fill the holes. We try to make ourselves fill those crazy gaps by being prettier, more powerful, more prestigious. We want more popularity. We want more profit. And when we have all of these things, we're confident it will fill the hole that was left when we left the garden, when Adam and Eve left the garden. And I'm here to tell you, it's a myth. You're never going to fill the hole by using your body and your mind to do it. There is not going to be a way through to spirituality through the mind. The Savior said, "Your thoughts are not my thoughts, saith the Lord. Your ways are not my ways." So what we've got to figure out is, how do we get back to the Spirit? Do you remember that 17-year-old girl I was telling you about? That incredible, young, vibrant woman who felt so bad because she couldn't smile like she used to. She taught me the way. And the way, very simply, was this. As we're sitting down, I had walked her through this model. She understood what her body and what had happened to her body and what that made her feel. She understood her mind. And she understood her spirit. And as she was telling me her story, I asked her, can you see where you are when you feel desperate and lonely and weak and pathetic and insecure? Where are you? And she said, I'm in my mind. And then it creates chemistry in my body. I'm like, great. So where do we need to go? And she said, we need to find a way back to the Spirit. How do you propose we do that? And she smiled and she said, I guess I just need to always remember him. I need to turn to God, she said, by always remembering him. And I asked her, how could we remember him right now? And she says, I'm not sure. And I said, imagine right now, you're weak, you're sad, you're so down, you feel so bad. What if the Savior came in right now and sat right next to you? What if he turned to you right there and reached out to you right here in this room and just held you, and you could just bury your face and your body into his grasp? She said, that would be so beautiful, and she started to cry. I said, what would it feel like? She said, I'd feel so loved. I'd feel so much peace. I'd have so much connection to him. I'd feel like we are one. And I asked her, so where are you now as you think about your problems, your trials, your adversity? She said, now I'm experiencing them from my spirit. That's the only way, my friends, to get that peace and that joy and that at-one-ment is we must learn to turn. And I promise you, when you turn, he will be there. to lighten the load. I then asked her, okay, so what if when you turn to him, what if he still doesn't want to heal your scars? And she got a little mad. Why wouldn't he want to heal my scars? And I said, well, maybe he might need you to have them for some reason. Why do you think he didn't heal his scars? And she said, I guess so that we would always remember him. Is it possible, I asked, that he has you keeping your scars just so you'll always remember to look to him? I truly believe that everyone in this room can eliminate a lot of our angst, our pain, our judgment, and our human issues if we would simply remember that you're not a human being having an occasional spiritual experience. You are children of the Most High God who loves you fully, and if you will just remember it, notice where you are, and turn, he will be there for you. And when you turn, your spirit grows. And the Lord starts to change your life, line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. He changes you. And he changes your ability to change your problems and your pains. It is the most powerful thing. So right now, everybody think of what you're battling with. Where does your body beat you up? Where does your mind beat you up? And I want you to imagine the turn. If you, in the midst of your biggest trial, your biggest pain, could be held by the Lord, I want you to imagine what that feels like. If you could just release your mortal thoughts and fears and be held. And if right now you can feel that peace and that love and that joy, I promise you, that's because he's there with you. He wants you to be better. He wants you to feel of his love. I promise you, if you will turn, he will be there. I promise if you knock, he will answer. It doesn't mean he will take away your scars and your pains, but he will give you the power and the strength through him to deal with them and turn them and convert them into something else. I promise you also this, he is waiting to be with you. He loves you fully and will feed you fully if you will turn to him. He tells us, I will be on your right side and on your left side, and my spirit will be in your heart, and my angels will be round about you to bear you up. Houston, we have a problem. Humans, we have a problem. And the only real lasting answer comes from heaven. I pray we'll all turn to God and look and live. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. How we doing? What do you guys think about that? About this particular talk? What do you think? I really love his talk, and I love the way he... Hey, Eldenwolf, how's it going? I love the way he puts into perspective, puts into perspective our existence on this earth. Right? Like, I think that this is really important to understand. Is this understanding that we are not, we are truly not a mortal people, right? Even to go as far as just like to understand that, like, as children of God, like we are celestial beings by nature. We were created to become like our Father, right? And I think that it's so incredibly important to realize that, like, we are not, as he puts it, we are not mortal beings having spiritual experiences, right? But rather we are spiritual beings having mortal experiences. I think the distinction there is really important to understand how God works in our lives, and what our relationship is with him, and why sometimes this world is really harsh. right? I love how he kind of puts it in he's got, you know, like body, mind, spirit, right? So it goes from like, we have all of these body experiences, they're very outward, they're very apparent, they kind of encompass, or we feel, they kind of feel everything. Then there's these mind experiences which aren't really affected too much by the physicality of the body, right? But are very real and very felt by the spirit and the mind. And then you have spiritual experiences at the very core. And the truth of the matter is that we are all spiritual beings, right? We are all spiritual beings first. We are children of God, right? I love towards the end that he also takes the time to talk about and ask the question, well, what if you come to God and he chooses not to heal you? Like, what are you going to do? What will you do then? And realizing that it's so incredibly important to just realize that sometimes that's okay. And that there's a reason for it. And that God will allow us to experience this mortal journey in such a way that will allow our spirit to become like him. It will allow us to become like him. And that is the most important thing. While I get ready to swap over to our Come Follow Me, any thoughts from you guys? Kale says, it reminded me a lot of The Chosen when Jesus had a talk with little James about why he wouldn't heal him. I actually haven't watched The Chosen. I probably should. And I have people tell me all the time that I should. But I have actually not watched it. But I definitely think that, like, as much as we hear stories of Christ healing everyone he came across, right? I imagine that there were times where he chose to not. And like we don't hear any stories of him healing, like, people when he fed them fish and bread, fish and bread, 5 loaves, 2 fishes, right? Like, he fed them, but he didn't necessarily, he healed some of them afterwards, if I remember correctly. But we don't hear much about it. And I wonder if, like, some of that is because he withheld for very specific reasons in some cases. I like that. I should watch it. It's really good. I know. I really like. I know that I should. I just haven't. So I know Ian's had the opportunity to work with them. Like, he works out in Goshen with the motion picture studio. I know that he's helped them a couple times with props and things for his mission, which, like, is pretty cool. And he's told me to watch it before, and I just haven't had the chance or haven't really done it. Sister Fawcett said, I'm reminded of Sister Johnson's talk from the last General Conference, becoming spiritually whole in him. Our physical and mental issues are temporary, but the relationship we can form with the Savior when we turn to him will last an eternity. Absolutely. 1000%. Okay, pause for just a second. I'm going to swap us over screens, okay? Cool. I very much agree with that, right? It's so... I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand our relationship between our spirit and our body, right? And I think that understanding the relationship between your spirit and your body can help you to overcome almost anything that this world can throw at you. Right? Because even though your spirit may be even though your body may be struggling, your mind might be struggling, like you're really going through it, like your spirit can carry the weight. It can. Your spirit is strong, mighty, because it was created by a very loving Heavenly Father. Right? So, I love that. I do want to jump into our Come Follow Me study because we only got about 14 minutes left. 16 minutes left. Math. So I do want to read a bit of our Come Follow Me study today as well. And I apologize that our talk took a lot longer today. And partially because of the technical difficulties. So, this week we get to read a little bit about Moses, which is really cool. I actually love the story of Moses, and I think it's important to understand that like when Moses was called to lead the people out of Egypt, right? Like he didn't want to. In fact, he kind of argues with God, and I don't know if we'll read that part today, but we'll see part of Moses' story here. So, Exodus 1-6. The invitation to live in Egypt saved Jacob's family, but after hundreds of years, their descendants were enslaved and terrorized by a new Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. It would have been natural for the Israelites to wonder why God allowed this to happen to them, his covenant people. Did he remember the covenant he had made with them? Were they still his people? Could he see how much they were suffering? Okay, I did not tee this up to talk into scriptures, but tell me they were feeling mortal experiences and not really realizing they were spiritual beings, right? Anyway, there may be times when you felt like asking similar questions. You might wonder, does God know what I'm going through? Can he hear my pleas for help? Israel's deliverance from Egypt answers such questions clearly. God does not forget his people. He remembers his covenants with us and will fulfill them in his own time and way. I will redeem you with a stretched out arm, he declares. I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out from under your burdens. Cool. So we are going to read this section here for Exodus 3, 1-6. So short little verses today. I can show reverence for holy things and places. Right? I think this is in reference to the story of Moses and him seeing a burning bush, right? Where he hears the Lord's voice and is kind of called as prophet to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. So anyway, cool. Can you think of a time when someone filled you with awe and wonder? How did you react? How would you describe the emotions you felt? With that in mind, read Exodus 3, 1-6. What impresses you about Moses' inspiring experience? What did Moses do to show reverence for God? And what connections do you see between his actions and reverence for sacred things? Let's give the scriptures a read, shall we? Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and beheld the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, and the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac. and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Okay, so in these 6 verses, what impresses you about Moses' experience and how he chooses to react when he hears God's voice from the bush? And then based on that, what connections do you see between how Moses reacts and how we show reverence for sacred things? One of the things I think is interesting here, right, is like Moses sees this miraculous thing, right? Bush is on fire, not burning. Like, and he's like, I'm gonna go look. Right? I think that's it. Like, to me, it's kind of intriguing because it shows, it kind of shows partially kind of what the natural man, kind of like the impulse, right, of maybe the natural man. But I think it also shows like an understanding, right, that like there is a miraculous thing happening, right? Because like obviously he doesn't, like obviously he knows if it's on fire it should be burning, you know, and so he knows that something is happening, and he says, let me go look, let me go find out what's happening, right? And he draws closer, right, and he hears the voice of the Lord, and then he turns, and then he's told to take off his shoes. I think that's so funny, right? Take off your shoes, this is a holy place, right? Essentially, like, be careful where you stand. Not necessarily be careful, but like be careful how you're standing in holy places. Emphasizing how important it is to make sure that we approach the Lord's house clean from the world. Right, and then we see that Moses turns his face away, or turns his face towards the ground, is what it says. Right? Let me see. Or he hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Right? I think this one to me is a little more interesting because, like, to me, at least with where I'm at, I feel like, I don't know, part of me feels like I have the curiosity enough that I would want to see. I would want to see God. I'd want to see him speaking to me. But I also feel like Moses is not necessarily, maybe, like, I can understand that Moses may not be in a place where he's, like, mentally or spiritually or physically, where he feels like he is ready to see God, right? I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? What do you guys see in these 6 verses? It's alright if you don't see anything. I'm going to keep reading our Come Follow Me because I want to read the whole section, and then we'll still talk more about Moses here. So, reading these verses might prompt you to think about holy things and holy places in your life. Why are they sacred to you? How do you treat them differently from things that are common? To guide your pondering, you could refer to the section titled Remembering the Promises in Elder David A. Bednar's message, Exceeding Great and Precious Promises. You might also sing or listen to a hymn that inspires awe, like I Stand All Amazed. and ponder what it is about the gospel that amazes you. Of course, even when we've had wonderful spiritual experiences, there's a danger of becoming too casual about sacred things. How do you avoid this? Here are 2 messages that address this issue. Pick one and look for statements that help you. So, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on maybe some of those questions that are there as well. But in the meantime, let me also just share a thought with you as well. So it kind of asks, like, how do you treat holy places in your life differently? Right? I think the easiest and most obvious example is the temple. And I think that that'll always be the most obvious answer, to be honest. Whereas I think all of us that are here treat the temple with a lot of reverence, right? We treat it as if we are approaching God himself, our Father, right? And I think that's so incredible, right? That we truly recognize that as his house, and we treat it as such, right? We as members of the church help to clean the temple on a weekly basis, right? People, wards or stakes, get asked to provide volunteers to do so, right? On top of that, right, people spend hours, right, sitting in peace and quiet, listening. Right? We're careful about what we bring into the temple. Right? I learned from my dad not to bring my phone into the temple. That's the way that I treat the Lord's house differently. Right? I think that it's really easy to become casual in sacred things and sacred experiences. It's easy to become casual in temple attendance. It's even easy. And even though we do it every week, it has become very casual, right? Going to church, going to sacrament meeting, and partaking of the sacrament is a very sacred and powerful experience if you allow it to be. And yet, oftentimes, we're not pondering or really just really thinking about the action that we are taking when we do so. Just a thought. Libby did leave a comment. She said, I love D&C 6, 10, and 12. Behold, thou hast a gift, and blessed art thou because of thy gift. Remember, it is sacred and cometh from above. Trifle not with sacred things. It says pretty much everything we have in life is a gift from God and deserves to be treated with a celestial amount of reverence and respect, whether it be our world or body or his other children. I like the way you put that, right? As you summarize it, everything God gives us, every gift that we're given, right, deserves, right, as you put it here, a celestial amount of reverence and respect. Right? Could you imagine the difference it would make in this world if you treated, and if everyone treated, everyone else with that celestial amount of reverence and respect? I will tell you right now, I'm not good at this. I definitely fall short of celestial reverence and respect for some people, even though they are God's children. They are my spirit brothers and sisters, and they really should have that respect, right? But not only that, but every place that you go, right? The beauty of this world and of God's creations is exactly that. It's his creations, and thus they are sacred and important. And if only we took the time to really treat them that way. Every place you go, every step that you take, are you leaving behind you a trail that is a trail that would glorify your Father? Or do you leave behind a trail that would otherwise persuade people to turn away? Right. One of the things that Cheyenne and I have done, or strive to do every day, is to provide a place in our home where anyone can come and feel comfort and joy and peace, where they can come and just relax and exist outside of the world, a place of refuge for them, as it has been for us. And we try to continue to create that refuge for us as much as we try to create it for others. And I'm very grateful for her, because that's been a priority for her life. For having a home. And she definitely has added to that, to my home, as she's not, obviously we're not living together yet, but she's over here all the time, and we treat it pretty much like it's our house already. And it's incredible to see just how much that's important to her. And I think about that because, like, it's that same reverence and respect that we should place everywhere that we can. Right? Leave behind you a trail that points people to Christ. Right? I think about the example of Peter. Right? Peter, after Christ's death and resurrection and ascension into heaven, walks around teaching people the gospel, and people wait in the streets just to be passed over by his shadow, because they believed and had faith that they would be healed if they were simply touched by Peter's shadow. Right? He truly left behind him a trail that pointed people towards Christ and pointed people towards heaven. And that is such a miraculous thing and such a powerful way to live life. Any other last minute thoughts from you guys before we end stream today? All right, cool. Well, that's all I got for you today. And I apologize that our Come Follow Me study was a little shorter, but I hope that y'all enjoyed the Hope Works talk, as that was a bit more of our stream, the majority of our stream today. We will be back next week. Next week, you get to be edified by the wonderful presence of Elder Jardine, or Ian, as I often call him. He's absolutely phenomenal. I love him to death, and I think that he's done a great job so far, at least in the streams I've been able to join and watch. So please join Ian or Elder Jardine next week for a week of Come Follow Me study, another week of building your ark, and I will see you guys all in the chat next week. So I love you guys, and I will talk to y'all next week.